7 Habits of Highly Fulfilled People. A Journey from Success to Significance by Satinder Dhiman. Chapter 1. The Journey of Self-Discovery. This is not a how-to book. No universal recipes for success or happiness are intended or implied. Rather, this book seeks to help the reader find fulfillment by taking an existential approach to the slings and arrows of ordinary day-to-day life. Instead of merely suggesting what to do about fulfillment, it takes us to the very heart of existential vacuum, to use Viktor Frankl's phrase, and asks us to re-examine our most cherished beliefs, expectations, and assumptions about life in general and human life in particular. An unexamined life, said Plato, is not worth living. This book assumes that its readers have a willingness whenever I have acted in accordance with them. Chapter 1. The Journey of Self-Discovery. This is not a how-to book. No universal recipes for success or happiness are intended or implied. Rather, this book seeks to help the reader find fulfillment by taking an existential approach to the slings and arrows of ordinary day-to-day life. Instead of merely suggesting what to do about fulfillment, it takes us to the very heart of existential vacuum, to use Viktor Frankl's phrase, and asks us to re-examine our most cherished beliefs, expectations, and assumptions about life in general and human life in particular. An unexamined life, said Plato, is not worth living. This book assumes that its readers have a willingness to undertake an impartial survey of their assumptions and expectations about life, to recognize and appreciate the most obvious, the most natural, and the simplest in life, to view fulfillment in the larger context of the transformative art of living wisely, and to seek fulfillment through self-knowledge. A good place to start the journey of self-discovery is to realize that we often have false ideas about ourselves and our expectations about life. Montaigne, a 16th century French author, wrote, "My life has been full of tragedies, most of which never happened. Not much has changed. We still often live most of our lives in what may be called voluntarily self-engendered anguish. While much physical pain is unavoidable, most psychological suffering seems to be optional." This book makes the felicitous assumption that right self-knowledge can ameliorate most of our optional suffering and pave the way to lasting fulfillment. Therefore, it makes the plea that one needs to know oneself. The power of knowledge. A certain billboard pictured a dog and a cat looking at each other. The ferocious dog was trying to pounce at the cat, yet the cat seemed unperturbed and even amused, sitting quietly in front of the dog. The caption simply read, "The power of knowledge." The dog was on a leash. The cat was aware of this fact. This knowledge gave the cat the freedom to enjoy the moment with great peace of mind. Such is the power of knowledge. If the knowledge of our surroundings confers such security, imagine what level of security self-knowledge may engender. Self-knowledge is the supreme key to fulfillment. All wisdom traditions of the world have upheld the importance of self-knowledge as a prelude to every pursuit of happiness and fulfillment. It is considered the alpha and omega of all searching, the ultimate end and purpose of human existence. Since happiness or fulfillment is sought for the sake of the self, it stands to reason that the journey should begin with knowing the self. This book takes it as axiomatic that self-knowledge is the key to lasting happiness and fulfillment. Therefore, in this book, every submission to attain fulfillment is presented through the prism of self-knowledge. Observation and reflection make it evident that without self-knowledge, we keep searching for happiness in the wrong places, without realizing that it may inhere in understanding our essential nature. Once we truly understand the nature and limitations of our pursuits, we begin to see the tyranny of searching for fulfillment in the external haunts of happiness. As Indian sage Ramana Maharshi succinctly put it, nearly all mankind is more or less unhappy because nearly all do not know the true self. Real happiness abides in self-knowledge alone. All else is fleeting. To know oneself is to be blissful always. The utter necessity of self-knowledge. By common knowledge, self-love is the highest form of love, or the ultimate good. In the final analysis, everything that we do or seek is to satisfy or to fulfill the self. Since all love of objects requires knowledge of the object of love, the necessity for self-knowledge becomes paramount in of searching for fulfillment in the external haunts of happiness. As Indian sage Ramana Maharshi succinctly put it, nearly all mankind is more or less unhappy because nearly all do not know the true self. Real happiness abides in self-knowledge alone. All else is fleeting. To know oneself is to be blissful always. The utter necessity of self-knowledge. By common knowledge, self-love is the highest form of love, or the ultimate good. In the final analysis, everything that we do or seek is to satisfy or to fulfill the self. Since all love of objects requires knowledge of the object of love, the necessity for self-knowledge becomes paramount in every pursuit of happiness and fulfillment. One wisdom tradition explains the utter necessity of self-knowledge through a framework of means and ends. All forms of love can be divided into following three broad categories: love of ends, love of means, and love of oneself. Love of ends refers to various pursuits of goals that we hold dear to ourselves. These pursuits can be directed at attaining wealth and security, physical, intellectual, and aesthetic pleasures, values, and spiritual freedom. All love directed toward these ends can be classified as the love of ends or goals. It is quite obvious that in order to attain ends, we need to pursue appropriate means. This brings us to the second form of love, the love of means. We love the means because they help us attain the ends that we want to acquire. In other words, means are not loved for their own sake. They are loved for the sake of the ends that they promise to accomplish. Now the question arises, do we love ends for ends' sake? This brings us to the third form of love, self-love. A little reflection will make it clear that we do not really love ends or goals for the sake of ends or goals. Rather, we love them for our own sake. For example, we do not desire wealth for wealth's sake. We desire it because we believe it will contribute to our sense of security and well-being. Means and ends are dear because they contribute to self-love. Thus, means and ends are not loved for their own sake. They are loved for sake of the self. This is a very important point to bear in mind throughout our journey to fulfillment. Of these three forms of love, love of means is the mildest, love of ends is of mediocre strength, and self-love has the highest intensity. In other words, if love of means is dear, love of ends is dearer, and the love of self is the dearest. If self-love is the highest form of love, and if all love of objects necessitates the knowledge of the object of love, self-knowledge becomes sine qua non to all overt or covert pursuits of happiness and fulfillment. To quote Sri Ramana Maharishi again, every living being longs always to be happy, untainted by sorrow, and everyone has the greatest love for himself, which is solely due to the fact that happiness is his real nature. Hence, in order to realize that inherent and untainted happiness, which indeed he daily experiences when the mind is subdued in deep sleep, it is essential that he should know himself. This book will present 7 gifts as habits of mind, geared toward attaining lasting fulfillment. Throughout the book, wherever possible, a conscious connection will be made between the gift under discussion and the knowledge of self. That self-knowledge is the atmosphere in which the pursuit of 7 habits of highly fulfilled people will take place. For, as the following story illustrates, without self-knowledge, one can overlook one's essential reality, even. What the hell is water? There were these 2 young fishes swimming along, and they happened to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, guys, how's the water?" And the 2 young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and says, "What the hell is water?" A famous Urdu poet, Muhammad Iqbal, ruminates about the paradox of searching for the self when we are the self. O Iqbal, I am searching as well as the sought. The great Persian poet Hafiz casually hands over the keys to the kingdom thusly. There is no barrier between the lover and the beloved. Hafiz, you are yourself the veil over your real self. Rise from within it. Sant Kabir Das, another Sufi poet, takes the matter a step further. The fish is thirsty in the water? When I hear this, it makes me laugh. This is an excellent example of missing out on reality due to self-ignorance. The following story shines further light on the importance of self-knowledge before starting any journey of self-discovery. Who is lost? A tale is told of a tourist who went to an exotic travel gift shop to buy some maps for the city he wanted to visit. He saw an item on display that looked like a compass. The compass had a lid, the inside of which contained a mirror. A little surprised over the combination of compass and mirror in one product, the tourist asked the owner about the rationale behind such a product. The owner explained, "The compass helps to find out where one is lost, while the mirror helps to determine who is lost." The world is made up of stories. A word of explanation is in order regarding this book's frequent use of proverbs, quotations, and teaching stories. Cervantes has defined a proverb as a short sentence based on long experience. According to a Persian saying, epigrams succeed where epics fail. Hence, proverbs and quotations are used copiously throughout the book for their sheer brilliance and economy. Great men, said Carlyle, taken up in any way are profitable company. This book frequently seeks the sage advice of great souls to enlighten the path of fulfillment. I have spared no effort to find the most memorable utterances of past and present to illuminate the topics under consideration. Of his essays, Montaigne says, "It might well be said of me that here I have only made up a bunch of other people's flowers and provided nothing of my own but the string to bind them together." Likewise, this book may also be seen as a book of strings, holding the beads of the wisdom of fulfillment together. Muriel Rukeyser says, "The universe is made up of stories." This book is made up of stories from varied sources, such as Indian gurus, Buddhist monks, Zen and Sufi masters, Hasidic rabbis, and Christian desert fathers. I know of no better way to underscore a theme than by using illustrative analogies, teaching stories, and illuminating anecdotes. As the following pages will show, this book frequently utilizes teaching stories to underscore and clarify certain concepts. Stories have been used universally to crystallize an abstract idea since time immemorial. Teaching stories have frequently been used in the wisdom traditions of the past for their entertainment and moral development values. Most teaching stories contain an element of humor that ensures their longevity. The humor is also used as a cloak to conceal the more profound meaning underlying a story. The humor, in which Freud found something liberating, sublime, and elevating, in fact, is used as a skillful device for precipitating deeper understanding and as an expression of new levels of insight. Ludwig Wittgenstein, a preeminent 20th century philosopher, is reported to have said that he could teach a philosophy class by telling jokes. According to Idris Shah, the blow administered by the joke makes possible a transitory condition in which other things can be perceived. As Plato has also pointed out, serious things cannot be understood without laughable things. But to stop only at the humor level is to miss the real meaning of the story. Robert Anton Wilson explains, if you don't laugh, you've missed the point. If you only laugh, you've missed your chance for illumination. Multiple dimensions of teaching stories. Psychologically speaking, stories possess the following key dimensions. First, intuitive quality. The moment the speaker says, "Let me tell you a story," the listener shifts gears, figuratively speaking, and a different faculty of comprehension is brought into play. In scientific terms, a better harmony between the left and right hemispheres of our brain is established. We are able to see the non-linear and subtler layers of meaning in a totally new way. Second, participative quality. A story is a sort of invitation that prods the listener to participate in its proceedings by identifying him or herself as one of its characters. Reading or listening to a story is really a collaborative experience in which the author or speaker and readers or listeners co-create the meaning as the story unfolds. Therefore, stories are essentially participatory in nature and enhances the quality of learning. Number 3, multiplicity of impact quality. A good story carries a constellation of impacts within its fold and thereby creates multiple impressions on the listener's mind. This enables listeners to view things from numerous perspectives, which in turn facilitates holistic thinking and learning. Number 4, tip of the iceberg phenomena. At the surface level, a story presents its message in a simple, straightforward manner. However, this meaning represents just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. At a deeper level, there are several underlying messages in a story. The listener or reader receives the nourishment for which he or she is ready. As with the skins of an onion, one will peel off one depth after another, revealing the inmost layers. Thus, a story offers something to all levels of experience. This is the reality behind the concept that all great teachers choose to speak in parables. Number 5, element of shock quality. A good story to wake the reader from the slumber of habitual thought patterns. By an unexpected turn or twist, a good story is able to tease a greater attention span out of the reader or listener. Besides preparing, a parable is a story that draws the listener's attention to the normal events of ordinary life, but then introduces an unexpected twist, a surprise inversion that undercuts the audience's normal expectations and pushes them into looking at life in a new way. The parable of Jesus provides a classic example of the element of shock. For example, the extra welcome reception of the younger son by the vineyard owner in the parable of vineyard laborers are sterling examples of the principle of unexpected shock in operation. One can only imagine the feelings of the listeners of these parables. the feeling as if the rug has been pulled out from under them unexpectedly, after having been drawn into the very fold of the story. Number 6. All at once quality. Finally, stories have a special quality that can be described as all at once. At the end of a story, the message becomes crystallized all at once, without further need of a stepwise linear process. There is no gap between the delivery of the message and figuring out the meaning behind the message. When the story ends, its moral holistically captures the essential meaning of the story all at once. Shah, who has written more than 20 books on various aspects of teaching stories and is a master storyteller himself, likens a story to a ripened peach, whose color and odor entail its entertainment value, entails its moral value, and kernel entails its psychological or symbolic value. The following tale may serve as a good illustration of various dimensions of stories. The Lost Keys. On one occasion, a neighbor found Mullah Nasiruddin down on his knees looking for something. "What have you lost, Mullah?" "My keys," said Nasiruddin. After a few minutes of searching, the neighbor said, "Where did you drop them?" "Inside my home," said Mullah. "Then why for heaven's sake are you looking for it here?" "Because there is more light here," said Mullah. The entertainment value of the story is quite obvious. One moral of the story is, do not look for things in the wrong places. Now, let's dig further into the tale for its deeper dimensions of symbolic meaning in a few of the underlying dimensions. Mullah Nasiruddin demonstrates that there are keys, which means there are solutions to the problems. Keys are not conveniently located, which means they are not placed next to the door. Keys are usually kept inside. Seeking the key and knowing how and where to find it. Peter F. Drucker, widely acknowledged as the father of modern management, has pointed out that most organizations are very good at solving the wrong problems. This story, in a very subtle way, indicates just that. This methodology, used where appropriate, sharpens learners' conceptual skills and helps to develop a habit of mind so critical in life and leadership. The ability to look beyond the surface. Vedanta and Buddhist psychology. This book primarily draws upon two timeless streams of thought, Vedanta and Buddhist psychology. This choice is solely guided by my relative familiarity with these two systems. However, as the discerning reader will notice, the teachings from other wisdom traditions are also presented through illustrative stories and anecdotes. 3 chapters specifically deal with the philosophy of Vedanta and Buddhist psychology. Chapter 8 presents the gift of selfless service and builds on the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, known as the Hindu Bible, which is a philosophical poem par excellence. The main theme of Chapter 8 is Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action. Chapter 10 presents the gift of presence, primarily in light of a Buddhist meditative practice called mindfulness. This chapter also narrates my recent experience with a meditative practice called Vipassana during a 10-day meditation retreat. These chapters are presented as self-contained, complete modules and assume no prior knowledge of Indian philosophy or Buddhist psychology on the reader's part. Finally, the last chapter brings these two streams together by harmonizing their teachings. Concluding remarks. In fine, the ideas presented in this book are in the nature of keys. They only work when put to use. That is, their truth is not to be abstractly understood, but to be existentially realized. Without being put into practice, parables merely feed the intellect and may become, in the words of D.T. Suzuki, mere bubbles. No originality is claimed or implied in these pages. Will Durant, a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and philosopher, even for the arrangement of ideas in this book, except that they are guided by common sense, personal observation, and experience. The prefatory remarks by Bertrand Russell in his classic guide to happiness, The Conquest of Happiness, accurately described my assessment of the nature of the information shared in this book. No profound philosophy or deep erudition will be found in the following pages. I have aimed only at putting together some thoughts which are inspired by what I hope is common sense. All that I claim for the recipes offered to the reader is that they are such as are confirmed by my own experience and observation, and that they have increased my own happiness whenever I have acted in accordance with them.